Good morning. Welcome to Community Unitarian Universalist Church here in Plano, Texas on this rainy day. My name is Reverend Dr. Aija Duelm. I am the minister of this congregation, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. We are a faith that affirms the dignity of all beings. We put love at the center, and we work for justice. Because of all these, this is not an easy faith. This week, it continues to call us to continue our work, practice our faith in every step that we make. That's the kind of faith we're part of, that each day it requires something of us. Our call to worship today comes from words that were written by Heide Cottam. This faith. Let us be a faith that gathers, reaching for one another through the walls of hate others build, through the cages of ignorance and arrogance, and through the fear that burns city streets. Let us be a faith that sees a vision of a better world, more compassionate, more just, more holy, and with more love. There is a faith that binds up the broken, cauterizes battle wounds with the balm of peace, sings louder and longer than the trumpets of war. Let us be that faith too. Let us be the ones who do not tread lightly in this world, but light it up with our love, who hold up the mirror of worth and dignity, who are the sanctuary others seek. But first, let us be a faith that worships together, here, this morning, in this space, at this moment. Let us be a faith. We begin our time by lighting our chalice.
The chalice is a symbol of both the heritage of our past and the light of hope within this church today. And this morning, the chalice will be lit by Ann Smith.
Our chalice is a reminder that in hard times, our ancestors in faith acted with courage to bring hope and safety, to bring life itself to threatened people. We light it today as a reminder of who we are called to be in a world still dangerous and despairing. With courage and faith, we bring ourselves to the work before us.
A covenant is the promise we make to one another about the way we will walk together as a community, as a congregation. Please join me in reminding ourselves of this promise.
Love is the spirit of the church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and freedom, and to help one another.
Today's reading is by David E. Bumbaugh and is addressed to the Chicago area UU Council at Unitarian Church of Hinsdale, Illinois, on May the 12th, 2001. It is titled, Toward a Humanist Vocabulary of Reverence. so pretend I have a male voice as I say. As an observer of and participant in contemporary Unitarian Universalism, I have found myself wondering what has happened to the humanist witness among us. How has it happened that we, who once seemed to set the agenda for religious discourse, now find ourselves increasingly on the defensive, if not engaged in a monologue? I would submit, to some degree at least, that we are talking to ourselves because we have allowed ourselves to be defined by the opposition. We have dismissed traditional religion as an atavistic aberration. We have given up the hope of constructive dialogue. We have manned the ramparts of reason and are prepared to defend the citadel of the mind against a renewal of superstition until the very end. But in the process of defending, we have lost the vocabulary of reference, the ability to speak of that which is sacred, holy, of ultimate importance to us, the language which would allow us to enter once more into critical dialogue with the rest of the religious community. If this be so, then the recovery of a vital vocabulary of reference is a task of great urgency for those of us who cherish the humanism tradition.
How many of you were born Unitarian Universalists? One. I know there are more than that in our church, but just today, present, one. Among all Unitarian Universalists, probably 85% were not born into this faith. We discovered it, we learned about it somewhere along the life in our journey, fell in love with it, even though we discovered and we knew that this is not an easy faith. Many of us here came to this faith from other religions. We touched some of them in our childhood, maybe later in life. There are a few of us who've never been touched by religion as we grew up, but became touched later in life in some form and shape. But we left that place maybe because we were disappointed about what was happening there. Maybe we felt unfulfilled. Maybe even hurt and excluded there. While we were part of that religion, part of that place and community, we participated in the events, in rituals, in the life of the community. We engaged in religious practices, learned the language to discuss faith matters. And yes, then we discovered that this faith was not for us. We looked elsewhere, gradually ending up here in these chairs here. If the place that you were part in the past taught any coercive beliefs and engaged in emotional manipulation or fear-based teaching, it is very probably that created spiritual wounds in us, in you, maybe even religious trauma. And researchers estimate about 1/3 of Americans have experienced religious trauma. So it's 1 in 3 people have gone through it. It's more common than we think. And religious trauma is the psychological and emotional distress that arises because of involvement in a religion or a religious community. And because of these wounds and this hurt, people leave religion. Sometimes they find themselves very defensive and angry whenever religion or religious topics are brought up. And it becomes very difficult to talk about religion, about faith practices. I myself needed spiritual healing when I came to Unitarian Universalism. I was born an atheist. I was not born in the church community. I was born in Latvia during the time it was occupied by Soviet Union. The church was persecuted. It was not something that people went to. There were no religious teachings as part of the cultural life or school or anywhere else. The main teaching was that there was no God anywhere, because even the astronauts have been to space and didn't find any there, so here you go. I was very convinced at one point that was true, so as a child. But when I became 20-something, like in my early 20s, Latvia had regained its freedom. The missionaries were flooding the place, and I encountered Christianity, and I embraced it through a student organization. That became a place where I first received my call to ministry. It called me to help others heal, help others find meaning in life. And it was very clear that God had called me. However, when I decided to explore this deeper and start to pursue it, there were two other things that became very, very apparent to me. Is that the place I was in, the religion, the faith part that I was in, its message was restrictive and based on fear, not based on healing. That second part, that those restrictions meant I could not enter ministry because I was a woman. That's the kind of restrictive faith I was part of. I did not belong with my calling in that faith. And I could not stay there because I knew that calling was true for me. But what it meant for me was I lost my spiritual home. I lost my community of faith at the time. And it took years for me to heal through this. Only when I began attending a Unitarian Universalist church was that when I realized who were my people and who was my faith. Where was my faith at that anymore? That was the time I was able to reclaim my faith and fulfill my call. On that very first Sunday, when I walked into a Unitarian Universalist church, Reverend Mark Waltz, some of you may know him, was in the pulpit. I think you know the rest. I don't even need to tell, right? He was talking about his experience as a theater major, playing in a play. And the role that he played, imagine that, God. As part of the set, he was supposed to walk through the aisle with his speaking, booming voice. And while he was walking, a woman in a wheelchair pulled him down by the hand and said, "If there is a God, I sure hope God looks like you." That was before Mark's hair went gray. Yes. Reverend Waltz continued to speak, and he said that he is a Christian atheist, playing God. But I had never heard that term before then, and to me, it resonated deeply with me. Because at the time, I was no longer a theist, but I deeply appreciated biblical stories that shared ethical lessons, that shared things about life and teachings that were wonderful examples of what humanity is about. When I shared about this story, discussed this story with Reverend Mark Waltz, he said, "Oh, that was moons ago. Now I have different words for how I describe who I am today in my faith." He continued to grow on his spiritual journey, as all we continue to grow and evolve. And I too have found more fancy words to describe where I am today. And I use social constructionism to describe my beliefs and my spiritual set of values, worldview. And if you want to know social constructionism, just a short definition, it represents a worldview in which religious concepts, doctrines, and even the very understanding of what constitutes religion, that these are products of human interaction and social agreement, not inherent and universally valid realities on their own. These concepts, these understandings are constructed in a social engagement. That's what social constructionism is all about. At the time, Christian atheism just sounded wonderful. And the thing is, we need tools, we need language to be able to talk about our faith, to express what is holy and sacred to us, to share with one another about what is that deepest thing that's most valuable, most awesome, what we found the most profound as a religious and spiritual truth. And right now we don't have other tools than language and words. What we have is this language. We can use English, we can use German, we can use other languages, but it's still language that constructs meaning, that helps us to express ourselves. Some of the words that among you use when we talk about faith and religion, we often say, "Oh, we're not too religious. We're these spiritual, not religious people." And some religious words make us uneasy. And partly because some of us still carry wounds from the past, and these words associate with those experiences. Some are just no longer part of our understanding of the world. I would like to read a few of these words and just listen to them, see if anything surprises you, and if any of these words actually have some meaning for you. God, God's will, last rites, priest, the cross, sacrament, apostolic, communion, spirit, worship, hymn, prayer, salvation, resurrection, sin, blessing. These are just a few words that I imagine all of us have heard and might be familiar with what they mean. I wonder if you noticed that they all are from Christian tradition. Do you think we consider these too religious? At least some of these? We rarely hear you say that words from other religious traditions are too religious. Think of that. Enlightenment, non-attachment, Tao. Do you have the same reaction to these words? No. We do have a lot more tolerance for other religions and their language than we have for Christian religion and their language. In the reading that we heard earlier, David Bumbaugh urges us to reclaim religious language to express our faith, so that we are able to embrace vocabulary of reverence. Yes, he writes from humanist perspective, and if you think about religious humanism was born in no other place than in Unitarian Church in the 20s. By 1933, they had their own humanist manifesto and were established. The debates ceased by then. But since the 20s, humanist and theist debate was prevalent in our Unitarian churches. This humanism as a faith tradition has shaped our UU faith as well over these years. They probably helped a lot for us to move away from any religious language in our conversations. And then you saw this a little more than 20 years ago. They were calling us back because we had lost our ability to engage religious vocabulary because of trying to oppose and just kept saying who we are not rather than who we are. I think we've made some progress in these last 20 years. Probably could do some more because we still end up welcoming new people here who come from other places with a different religious language, the same words, but probably with a very different meaning to these words. Religious words and concepts, they have hurt, but they also offer a powerful way to heal us, to comfort us. In this church, we use some of these words. We say worship on Sunday morning, not an assembly or gathering, but worship. We sing hymns. We engage in prayer. We say the word church. It's in our name. We are a church, not a fellowship, not a club. We are a church. And we engage in various rituals. Today we lit the Chalice. This is one of our rituals. Every Unitarian Universalist church lights Chalice at the beginning of their worship service, at the beginning of their important business meetings and gatherings. Unitarian Universalism is a religion. We are a faith with our traditions, history, heroes, stories, faith practices, and values that guide our moral decision-making process and guide our actions in the world. Those who were lucky to born into this affirming faith have also witnessed changes through the years and have had to learn new language, new concepts, Is that right? Yes, right? This is a living faith. It's not a static and set. It keeps evolving. It keeps growing. And in these times that we live today, when we face attempts to take away human rights, take away our democracy and our voice, it is even more important that we cling to our religion that has sustained us, liberated us, and healed us. Alan de Botton writes in his book, Religion for Atheists, that religion offers deep insights and good ideas on how to build a sense of community, make sure relationships last, overcome feelings of envy and inadequacy, reconnect with natural world. Religion turns strangers into friends, meals into ethical lessons, while also providing ways to solve some of what goes wrong inside the group. Because religions understand that to belong to a community is very desirable and not very easy. When we are engaging in social justice work with other religious people, when we join the protests and rallies together with other people who are part of other religions, we will see their language. I saw one yesterday. So if we're going to be able to work together, we have to at least be able to tolerate that language. And we also need to be able to express our own faith, to share about Unitarian Universalism and how it relates to the work that we do. And because we're different religion. For us, faith is not a set of specific beliefs. It is a commitment to personal spiritual growth, commitment to ethical values, and a search for truth and meaning. It's a journey, the walking sticks. It's a journey of exploration and discovery, encouraging individuals to find their own individual spiritual path within a community that embraces this diversity of many views and welcomes all. So when we begin the new members class, we begin by sharing our stories, sharing about our search for truth and meaning, and what has brought us here to this place, because this is part of what our faith is about. Some of you might have so rich stories and would be willing to share them more broadly, and maybe we could have a worship service where we get to hear one another's stories, or maybe we could have an Odysseys on Sunday mornings where we get to hear about people's spiritual journeys in deeper depth that we can otherwise hear. Because we can learn from one another, and also it helps us connect with one another at a deeper level. The good news is that this faith community offers communal support that is so necessary for the process of healing from religious past hurts, and to be able, so that we can become able to speak the words that evoke the sacred and holy, that lift up that which we consider worthy among us. May we gift ourselves with this opportunity to claim our faith bold and strong. Reach out our hands to hold others and allow others to hold us. Amen.
And now, as our worship time this morning draws to a close, it is time now to extinguish our chalice. Please join me now in reciting these words.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Jim Wickman said these words: "May our faith sustain us, our hope inspire us, and our love surround us as we go our separate ways, knowing that we will gather again in this beloved community." Amen. Go in peace.